Major breaking news, a huge victory for President Donald Trump and perhaps the Second Amendment, as Professor Jennifer Mascot, who we've talked about on this channel before, has just been confirmed to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals by the United States Senate. But are we home yet? No, we're not. We're going to break it down when we come right back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards. All right, folks, so we have fantastic news, and I have to give credit where credit is due to the Donald Trump White House and to specifically the United States Senate, including Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, who, as a reminder, single-handedly, with some help from Mitch McConnell, prevented Merrick Garland from filling a seat left by Justice Scalia upon his death, which, of course, allowed Donald Trump in his first term to fill that seat with now Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. Well, anyway, I'm happy to report that Senate Majority Leader John Thune, with Senate Judiciary Committee head Chuck Grassley, has just done another fantastic thing, and that is they have now pushed through and confirmed by a vote of 50 to 47, I believe, the nomination by President Donald Trump of Jennifer Mascot, Professor Mascot, to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, this is a huge deal, folks. As you know, on September 17th, 2025, just a few weeks ago, I published a highly important article in that very influential Washington, D.C. based publication, the National Pulse, explaining in extreme detail the importance to the Second Amendment of the U.S. Senate acting expeditiously to confirm the nomination by President Trump of Professor Jennifer Mascot to the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. I then followed up that major article on September 17th, which obviously got some attention in Washington, D.C., with a video 2 days later on September 19th explaining in extreme detail the importance to the Trump agenda, to the Second Amendment movement, and to the future of the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, which of course is the Court of Appeals that covers New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, to getting Jennifer Mascot confirmed to that court with speed because of the pending en banc oral argument dealing with whether or not New Jersey's ban on AR-15s and New Jersey's ban on magazines that hold more than 10 rounds and the like, and other gun control measures by that deep blue state. There is an en banc oral argument, which we've covered before, on October 15th, 2025. And I explained in that article on September 17th and in my video on September 19th, the importance of getting Professor Mascot confirmed to the Third Circuit. And I'm happy to report that just now, the United States Senate has indeed confirmed her. This is a very big deal, folks. But we're not all the way home. What do you mean, Mark? Today is not October 15th. We have a few more days till October 15th. Why can't she sit on the federal bench now? Are there any remaining issues? And the answer is, technically speaking, there is. Because the way the process works is this. Once the United States Senate votes to confirm a presidential appointee, such as a federal judge, in this case, making Professor Jennifer Mascot a federal judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, there is a final step. And that step is the signing by the President of the United States of her official judicial confirmation or her commission. Until the President signs the commission, making her a federal judge on the Third Circuit, she is technically speaking not a judge and cannot be sworn in to sit on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, or any bench for that matter. So what we now need is the administrative step of President Donald Trump signing the Judicial Commission of now, we hope, to be Judge Jennifer Mascot, who today is still a professor. Once President Trump signs that commission, As long as he does it before the 15th, or even on the morning of the 15th, technically speaking, I assume he would want to do it before then she becomes a federal judge upon her swearing in. So to be clear, what we now need is for President Donald Trump to sign the commission of Professor Mascot. And after that occurs, the next step is for her to be sworn in to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. And I don't know who is going to swear her in, but if I were a betting man, I guess actually I am, but that's a separate issue. If I were a betting man, I would not be surprised to see either Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas or Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh swear in Professor Mascot to become a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Now, the reason why, as you know, this is so important, and I've done the math here, we've talked about this in detail before. Right now, on that en banc panel, as of the very moment before Jennifer Mascot is confirmed, I should say, is seated on the Third Circuit. She's been confirmed now. We just need her to be seated. Right now, before that occurs, the Third Circuit is right now for that en banc argument 8-6, 8 Republican judges versus 6 Democratic judges. My concern, as I explained to you in previous videos on September 19th, and I think in my video on my article on September 17th, was that if a single Republican judge peeled off and found that the New Jersey AR-15 ban, semi-automatic rifle ban, magazine ban was constitutional under the Second Amendment, which would clearly be wrong, by the way. But let's assume hypothetically a Republican judge did such a thing. That would mean that the Third Circuit en banc would be split 7-7. 8-6, one peels off, makes it 7-7. And that would mean the lower court, district court decision that basically upheld, with all intents and purposes, the New Jersey AR-15 magazine ban, with a very narrow exception dealing with Colt AR-15s. Kind of quirky there. Don't quite understand how that happened, but that's what happened. That district court decision would be upheld because the Third Circuit would split 7-7 in a tie. And in a tie, guess what happens? The district court decision stands. So my argument was that by Jennifer Mascot being confirmed to the Third Circuit as an originalist, trained under the watchful eye of the originalist Justice Clarence Thomas, trained under the watchful eye of the originalist Justice Brett Kavanaugh, a prominent originalist in her own scholarship, with a specialty in really separation of powers issues, among other things, Professor Mascot would be a potential tie-breaking vote if you got her on the court in time for that October 15th en banc argument over the New Jersey gun control laws. So now, with her confirmation, that 8-6 Republican to Democrat ratio becomes for the en banc argument 9-6. So that even if a Republican judge were to peel off, which would be wrong, and uphold some part of New Jersey's gun control law, it could still conceivably be, right, 8-7 in favor of knocking out the New Jersey gun control laws in favor of the Second Amendment, which is clearly the right answer. Now, I want to make one technical point because I know a lot of other YouTube channels and other people are tracking what I say on this. So I want you to understand there's a couple things you got to understand when you report on this. In addition to the fact that she is not a judge until Donald Trump signs her commission, which has to still occur. She is not a judge until she's technically sworn in, which has not yet occurred. The other critical thing to understand when you do the math about why this was so important to the October 15th en banc argument is, technically speaking, right now on the Third Circuit, there are 7 Republican judges that are active versus 6 active Democrat judges. Hear what I just said? There are 7 Republican judges who are active and 6 active Democrat judges by virtue of nominations. The reason, however, why for the en banc argument in the Cheeseman Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs cases, the reason why it's 8-6 in favor of the Republican appointees is because Judge D. Brooks Smith, who's a senior judge, is not an active judge. He's a senior judge and technically is not considered under the rules as an active judge, and therefore is not counted in that 7-6 Republican confirmed or Republican nominated majority. However, Judge Smith gets to sit en banc because he was on the original 3-judge panel that was going to issue a ruling on this AR-15 semi-automatic rifle magazine ban case out of New Jersey originally. But prior to the issuance of that panel ruling, whatever it was going to be, as you know, the Third Circuit reviewed the draft opinion, whatever that was, and decided instead of to release that via the panel, they would en banc it and rehear the argument on October 15th. But because Judge Smith is a senior judge who was on the original panel, he is under the rules allowed to participate and hear argument on October 15th en banc, because normally, in contrast, normally when a court of appeals, such as the Third Circuit, hears a case en banc, which means that every active judge sits on the case. Senior judges, such as Judge Smith, would generally not be allowed to sit on an en banc panel because they're senior judges. They're not active judges in the Third Circuit. They basically have sort of quasi-retired. There is that one exception, though, when a senior judge sits on an original panel from which the en banc review or the en banc hearing arises, then that senior judge on the original panel is allowed to sit en banc. And that's why when you report on this before the seating of Jennifer Mascot, it is 8-6 in favor of the Republicans, even though among active judges right now, it is 7-6 in favor of the Republicans. And with the elevation of Jennifer Mascot to the Third Circuit, it will become 9-6, right, in favor of the Republicans for the en banc panel. And in other en banc cases, if there are any, it will be 8-6 in favor of the Republicans, but 9-6 in favor of the Republicans for the Cheeseman Association New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Club case. But for other purposes, it will be 8-6. So again, 9-6 for the Cheeseman case, 8-6 in the Third Circuit for all other en banc cases as a general matter, because in Cheeseman and Association New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, Judge Smith, out of Pittsburgh, I believe, will get to sit en banc on that en banc panel for the reasons I've just articulated. So I'm just making you extra smart and extra geeky because a lot of people are reporting on this, and that's great. We want to encourage other people to talk about these things. I don't need to be the only voice out there. I'd rather there be 1,000 voices rather than just Mark Smith. So I applaud other people that are covering this, but I just want to make sure that when you cover this and explain this, you kind of get those nuances correct, just to help you out, word of the wise, as they say. So ultimately, I think this is a huge win for President Trump, and I'm hoping this is a big win for originalism, a big win for the Second Amendment, a big win for the original understanding of the Constitution, including the original understanding of the Second Amendment. But again, we will see. The history of the future is yet to be written, as I like to say. So who knows what happens? You can never predict exactly what's going to happen, but I do got my fingers crossed and I've got my candles lit that all will be well in the Third Circuit, and they will knock out the majority of New Jersey's insane, nutty, and unconstitutional gun control laws. But again, we will see what happens as this all moves forward. Anyway, there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you follow me over there on X at 4Boxes Diner. Don't forget to subscribe both to YouTube and to Rumble. And I look forward to talking to all you again real soon here at the 4 Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.